Everyone, Don Callahan again. Very short Zoom video. As I promised, I would upload this, and hopefully you can see the video. Last time I did a video, and there was a technical problem. You couldn't see the video, so I left an audio file. We'll check it today and see if it works or not. I wanted to mention a couple of things about the incident, Betty and Barney Hill abduction. On the alleged abduction on the spacecraft, September 19th, 1961. Once again, it was in September 61. They didn't discover that it was what they thought was a spacecraft until they underwent hypnosis about a number of sessions over a 6-month period, beginning not until January of 64. Dr. Benjamin Simon hypnotized both in separate rooms, separate sessions. And so, of course, they went back home. Well, that's a lot of time, 6 months, and they talked to each other about it and what they recounted. And so his diagnosis was shared delusion and not an actual abduction. Betty and Barney refuted that and said no to that. They said no, they were abducted. There was I came across a little research at the Harvard Gazette, Harvard University, where there was a researcher said that some people buy in to their belief, in this case, the alien abduction, and they experience emotional distress and physiological discomfort as well, just like somebody who actually underwent serious trauma, like combat fatigue and so forth, or if you were somebody, if you suffered from some kind of trauma that actually happened in reality, where you would also, when recalling it, you would then become distressed, visibly distressed, not just mentally, but physically distressed too. Well, Betty and Barney were physically distressed because I think that they were not abducted, but they really bought in to what they thought happened. And they didn't really discover it until they underwent a hypnosis. And that was over 2.5 years later. Betty had been having some nightmares near the end of 63 about men in a road abducting them, men, not aliens. And so when she underwent hypnosis, it then became aliens. So, and I think Barney was a nice guy and more intelligent than Betty, in my opinion, and he just kind of went along with his wife. There's something else that I came across in my research, which is called accidental awareness. When a patient is on a table being operated on and the anesthesia wears off unexpectedly, and they wake up and they see doctors with masks on and they don't quite know where they are, and people with surgical tools in their hands. One researcher said he thought that Barney was recalling that under hypnosis, that because he had a tonsillectomy, and I think he either found out or he thought that Barney probably was suffering from accidental awareness, and then transferred it into the abduction of by aliens. The thing that very quickly to tell you what strikes me too is that it's a haunted house scenario. A lot of movies and scary movies take place in haunted houses or a scenario like that. So if you go into a spaceship that's kind of dark, it's dark at night, as they said it was, and then you're surrounded by these creatures. It's a typical Hollywood kind of a scene, a haunted house kind of scene, where you don't know where you're going and you're going to be experimented on, what's going to happen to you, harm is going to come to you in some kind of way. So it's got that going for it as in the way of a story. So I'm seeing that, and again, I think Betty had probably, I didn't read this, but probably had a neurotic, obsessive compulsive personality. And those people tend to scare themselves. And when something when everything is calm around, and you lead a calm life, they kind of stir up trouble. You can read about that kind of personality. I think she probably had that type of personality. Also, the aliens I wanted to mention, as I mentioned last in the audio file, I'm just going to talk about the aliens for a minute. They seem to travel all these miles, millions and millions of miles, wherever they're coming from, if they actually exist, and they hang out in forests typically, and it's at night typically, but not all the time. And then they get you on board, and they just want to experiment on you like a lab rat. It's just like a lab rat. I mean, that's it. So they come all these miles. There's no cultural exchange. They don't really want to talk to us. Although Betty said she did converse with the leader, who conveniently spoke English, by the way. right before leaving the craft, which I find implausible. You've just been kidnapped and violated in the worst way, and now you want to talk to the person who violated, or the creature who violated you? That doesn't make sense to me. Also, she wanted to, something I read, she said she wanted something to prove that she was on the spaceship. And he said, the leader said, look around. He said, what would you like? And she said, I'm gonna take this book over here. It was a big book with printing in it that was not English, but it read from top to bottom, not left to right. And he said, you could have it. And then before she was leaving the spaceship, that would have been proof positive, right? That would have been one of the most famous and valuable books in the history of the planet. But then he conversed with some other his comrades on board the ship, and he came back over and took the book away and says, no, they don't want you to have it because they don't want you to have proof that this happened to you and that we exist. So that was just a little bit too convenient. Also bizarre. It was really bizarre occurrence. And the other thing is that, I pointed out that they were awake, both Betty and Barney, according to them, were awake during the procedures. And, anytime you go to a doctor here and you have anything, kind of surgery where they put you on a table, they typically knock you out because they don't want you flailing all about. You could break the needle in you or anything could happen. You have to be knocked out. And they were not knocked out. That's odd to me. Something else in defense, though, of Betty, my research revealed to me that there was an Air Force base called Pease, P-E-A-S-E, Air Force Base, a big one, very near Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is on the Atlantic coast. And it was said, I read years ago, that if the aliens are flying about, that they often fly a lot around Air Force bases. For instance, in 1947, there was supposed to be a crash outside of Roswell, New Mexico, and sure enough, there was an Air Force base very near there, where a lot of activity was happening because it was ramped up during World War II, which ended in 1945, and it was still a lot of post-war activity at that Air Force base. So that would make sense that if there's spaceships around there, that one crashed near there. It was written about on the local paper. This was in July, I believe it was 1947, and that a flying disc was recovered. The very next day, the government got involved, and the paper retracted that story, that it wasn't a flying disc, it was a weather balloon. So it could be a government cover-up of an actual spacecraft that landed. Also, there's a Travis Walton story. You can look it up. There's going to be something of him on YouTube, and there's a documentary on Discovery Plus. In 1975, he was abducted for 5 days. He was gone. And then they brought him back, and then he told his story also on hypnosis. And then there's something else you want to look up, or if I can put a link in here for the, you can look at that update. I'll try to do that. It was the Ariel School, grammar school in Zimbabwe. I believe the year was 1994. Some of the students who now are older, obviously, there were about 70 or so, 75 students out in the schoolyard playing during recess, and an alien spaceship touched down, and little creatures, gray creatures with slanted eyes, like Betty characterized, came out in shiny black uniforms, just like Barney said that they were dressed. So there might be some truth there. Maybe those were the same types of characters who allegedly kidnapped Barney and Betty Hill. It's ARIEL School in Zimbabwe in the 1990s. Check out that video. It's pretty revealing. I'll try to upload, if I can find one on YouTube, to our Betty and Barney Hill module. Also, I'll try to upload the story about two men who in 1973 who were allegedly abducted in Pascagoula, Mississippi. They were night fishing sitting on the end of the pier, and these creatures came from a floating disc. They came out, kind of muscular, strange-looking creatures, because he drew one of the men. One's dead now. The other guy's about 70. He was 19 at the time, and at Calvin, and he drew a picture, and then they levitated both of them into the spaceship, and then a small machine of some kind flew around his head because he was on the table and took pictures. And then sure enough, a gray creature, small gray creature, came out and was sticking her finger. He said he characterized her as a woman, as a female, stuck her pinched his cheek, stuck her finger down his throat and up into his nose until he was, choking, and then finally they let him go. And he stands by the story. He too was hypnotized, but I think he recalled it, even not really needing hypnosis, but was hypnotized later. Also, one more thing, and then I'll post a little video for you at the end of next week. I uploaded into our Barney and Betty Hill module how to cite YouTube on the works cited page. So they have some YouTube videos there for if you want to use them. But there's a certain way to fully document YouTube usage on the works cited page. So look for that link in our Betty and Barney Hill module, and that'll show you exactly what to do and how to do it in case you use citations, because you need a minimum of 2. In case you use citations other than somebody who wrote about it, you might use a YouTube citation. In the body, all you have to do is put parentheses YouTube parentheses period, but on the works cited page, it's you have to write it out. There's more to the story than just the URL address. That is used, but that is at the end of some other information that comes before it. Check out the example, and you'll see exactly how to do it. And I'll talk to you at the sometime next week or near the end of next week. And have a happy Mardi Gras.